10 o'clock on the dot. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. NFL owners meetings continue this week in Orlando. We have more rule changes coming to fruition. The NFL trade deadline has been moved back a week and will now be after week 9 of the NFL's regular season. And the NFL has approved a new hybrid kickoff model similar to the one that originated last year in the XFL. Vanderbilt has hired Mark Byington to be their new head men's basketball coach. Byington most recently led JMU to 32-4 record and an opening round win over Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament. The Nashville Preds back in action tonight against the Las Vegas Golden Knights tonight at Bridgestone Arena, looking to continue their franchise record point streak to 18 games. Puck drop for that one is at 7 o'clock. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Good morning. Welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. It's the Buck Rising Show, not featuring Buck Rising for the last day. You'll get Buck back on Wednesday, but for now, you're still stuck with me till 1 p.m. I'm Lucas Panzika, Jackson Williams, making the show happen across the glass in what has been a busy couple of days down at NFL owners meetings in Orlando. Jackson, good morning, bud.
Morning. How are you, bud?
Doing great. Had some trouble getting in. Hope everyone's staying safe this morning with a rainy Nashville Tuesday.
Got to learn how to drive in the rain, people.
What is your number one tip to driving in the rain for the citizens of Nashville? Jackson, as you are clearly so good at it.
Slightly more cautious, but not too cautious. Got to find a sweet spot.
Find the sweet spot. There you go. There's your tidbit from Jackson Williams today. I bet the weather is better in Orlando. And a lot's getting done in Orlando. I was going to open the show today talking about what Tom Pelissero had to say on J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback who is shooting up draft boards. But we'll get to that in a moment because another rule change has been approved by NFL owners. This one not unanimous like the swivel hip drop tackle ban was yesterday. There were 3 dissenting teams on this one, but nonetheless, kickoff rules are being changed in the National Football League. And if you've watched the XFL at any point, or if you've partaken in discussions about the XFL's kickoff rules potentially coming into the NFL, I know we've talked about it on the station quite a few times. Well, that is now official. The kickoff in the NFL is going to look drastically different starting in 2024. Instead of me blabbing about it, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN put out a great breakdown. Now, note, Jeremy put this together, or ESPN put this together, prior to the rules getting confirmed. So you'll hear Jeremy talking about it in the context of, if this gets approved, this is what would look like. Just know that the NFL rule change for kickoffs has been approved, and this is how it will look per Jeremy Fowler.
The National Football League wants to juice things up while still pursuing their continued desire to improve safety on the game's most dangerous play, the kickoff. 2 major rule changes at this year's annual league meetings are being considered. The first and most significant, the NFL is considering adopting the kickoff rules used by the XFL after the NFL saw kick returns on just 22% of kickoff in 2023. Under the new rule, the kicker would remain in his normal spot. The rest of the kickoff team would line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line, and the receiving team would line up 5 yards away on their 35-yard line. Nobody would be allowed to move past those lines until the ball is touched or reaches the target zone, the area from the 20-yard line to the goal line. The next proposal would also impact the kickoff. After only 5.2% of onside kicks were recovered in 2023, and just 2 surprise onside kicks, the competition committee is looking for some give and take. The new rule would allow the kicking team to utilize an unbalanced formation, with 6 players on one side of the kicker and 4 on the other, to raise the odds of a recovery. But in order to do so, the kicking team would be required to declare their intentions of an onside kick before the play. That's necessary since that other kickoff proposal has a new setup zone. As a result of these proposals, touchbacks could also change. If the ball is kicked into the end zone, the receiving team gets it at the 35-yard line. If the ball is kicked into the target zone and rolls into the end zone, the receiving team possession would start at the 20-yard line. If all this feels a little complicated, you're not alone. It isn't easy to create more action with less injuries. But if these proposals end up being passed, it's because the league's owners believe this new approach will accomplish both.
There you go. Why hear me babble through it when Jeremy Fowler can just break it down for you, and he does a great job there. Instant reactions to the rule change with NFL kickoffs and how it'll look starting in 2024. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in. Also on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Jackson, your first reaction to the new look kickoffs in the National Football League.
I like it. I said it into your ear as this was playing. I like I really like how touchbacks are changing. You know, it's not an automatic at the 25-yard line. It's going to involve some real strategy on the part of kicking teams. I really think this is going to be an interesting development.
And how about the XFL influencing the way the NFL is playing football?
Once again, the original XFL did something involving replay officials, I believe.
Now, what sort of sprouts from this will be interesting, because one thing this does permanently take away is the surprise onside kick. Now, teams can still try and execute an onside kick, but obviously you will be signaling it, right? Declaring it that it's happening, because it'll affect the way the receiving team lines up, as opposed to lining up like a normal kickoff and doing a surprise onside kick, which you cannot do with this new format. I saw Andrew Siciliano of NFL Network talking about this on social media too, where he said there were only 2 surprise onside kick attempts in 2024 anyway. Both of them failed. Look, I'm all for this. The kickoff has become largely a pointless play in football. People that are looking at this and screaming, fake football, you're not actually looking at the rule change and what this means. I think we will see more exciting plays come from the kickoff with this new rule. And if it does achieve that balance that Fowler was talking about, that owners are intending to limit the injury rate on the kickoff with NFL players running full speed at each other for 50, 60 yards and colliding, while at the same time providing more explosive and more exciting plays, then I'm all for it. How could you not be all for it?
And the strategy involved is going to be interesting, because you can't just kick it through the end zone anymore. Because, I mean, you're putting yourself in a field position disadvantage by giving the other team the ball at their 35-yard line rather than, their 20 or trying to go make a tackle.
D2 Squared on the F&M Bank chat says, I would probably be more in favor to trial this in the preseason for 1 to 2 years before totally changing the game. Lonzo says, can we just play flag football? See, this is what I'm talking about. Like, why
this isn't flag football?
Why is the new kickoff rule suddenly not football?
And it's also only a 1-year trial. This is like when they were able to review pass interference calls. So if this doesn't work, it's out of the game next season.
Sure. I just don't understand the dissenting opinions on this. If you are truly thinking that this is just flag football and we're losing the art of the physicality of football because of this new rule, then you're not paying attention. Okay, if you want to see guys sprinting down the field and colliding into blockers, that's fine. It's just not really happening that much with the frequency of fair catches inside the 20, with the touchbacks that seem to be, I don't know what percentage of NFL kickoffs in 2023 were touchbacks, but this play is not having an impact on the game anymore. Now it has a chance to, and it could limit the injury rate on that play whenever the ball is taken out for a return. So I see absolutely nothing wrong with this. And like Jackson said, give it a shot. See what happens in 2024 with it. We talked about the swivel hip drop tackle ban yesterday. And I think there will be a lot more dissenting opinions on that. We talked about the video they showed at the press conference. But look, that rule was a unanimous vote by NFL owners. So clearly there is data there that shows that the swivel hip drop tackle leads to injuries at a very frequent rate. And I saw Keith Bullock, Titans legend, talking about this on Twitter yesterday about that's not how he was taught to tackle anyway, how that form of tackling feels like a new thing in the NFL. So we'll see. I can already see the amount of what look to be just regular football plays coming back as penalties in critical moments and being a really frustrating point for fans. But clearly, owners unanimous on it and all on the same page. So busy week down at NFL owners meeting. 615-737-1045. Jason in Nashville is up first to talk about these changes. Hey, Jason.
This one. Okay, thanks, brother. How you doing?
Jason, what you got?
Good.
Uh-oh. Jackson, I think we're joining a conversation we're not supposed to be privy to. All right, Jason. Roaring start to the show today. Adam Sparks will be coming up next. We'll do a spring practice check-in with Adam Sparks of the Knoxville News Sentinel. And then at 10:45, call in and tell us what made you say, oh, no, in sports this weekend, because we've got something to give away. A 4-pack of Nashville Soccer Club tickets to Saturday's match against Columbus Crew. Be listening for the cue to call at the end of the following segment with Adam Sparks of Knox News, who will join us coming up next to check in on Tennessee spring football on 104.5 The Zone.
Something else that Bert suffers from, erectile dysfunction. If you need it, the Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you. Guys like Bert struggle with this all the time. Insecurities are okay to have, but the Tennessee Men's Clinic is the best support system in place to make sure that you can get right. They have been treating guys like Bert for over a decade, and they are here to help you with non-surgical solutions. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has multiple providers here in downtown Nashville, close to where we are, and in Cool Springs to make sure that you can get the proper treatment path that you deserve. Their urologist-based practice with multiple providers has been focused on outcomes and treatments with the highest success rates, as high as 90%. A lot of guys go in after pills and herbals have failed with no surgery. Like I said, they're there to help you. The multiple providers and urologists are there to take care of you. It's time to feel amazing and hit your goals this year. They're there to help you with scheduling. It's usually easy to book same or next day appointments. So get treatment for ED knocked off the list early this year. They specialize in seeing guys who think they're out of luck, want to regain hope that they can be successful in the bedroom and beyond. Call 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090, or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com and book an appointment today.
Adam Sparks set to join us from the Knoxville News Sentinel. A little Tennessee football spring practice check-in over a week into spring ball. But first, some Titans news and notes. Now, the L'Jarius Sneed trade obviously was reported late Friday night, but Ian Rappaport has a couple more details on it, and Paul Kaharski reporting Sneed has officially passed his physical with the Tennessee Titans that had been pending up until this point. Ian Rappaport puts out the tweet, new Titans cornerback L'Jarius Sneed has agreed to terms on a massive new contract. Now that his deal to Tennessee is done, he gets a 4-year, $76.4 million deal and includes $55 million guaranteed and a $20 million signing bonus, making him one of the highest paid corners in the National Football League. So the only new detail really is the signing bonus money. We still don't know how that's going to be allocated in regards to the cap. A few other news and notes to get to down the road here in the show from NFL owners meetings, and Jim Wyatt doing some great reporting down there for TennesseeTitans.com. But for now, we go to KnoxNews.com, where Adam Sparks joins us from East Tennessee. Adam, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. Part of the way through spring practice. Got pro day tomorrow, so it's that time of year.
What is the discussion around pro day tomorrow? I assume Joe Milton is kind of dominating it, or is it more about Jalen Wright, Adam, who had a nice combine in Indy a few weeks ago?
Well, I'll be curious to see what drills they do, because Jalen Wright ran a really good 40. Does he hang his hat on that 40 from the combine, or does he think he can run faster because this is home turf? So that's something to watch. I mean, obviously, Joe Milton, everybody will want to see him throw. Now, they saw him throw at the combine, but anytime he can throw live for scouts, it helps him. But, I don't know. I mean, the thing is Joe Milton is, he's like the 10th quarterback, something, I think, if you look on Kiper's board, something like that. He can only go so high because he can't help some of his game film. It is interesting to see the difference between last year's pro day and this one. Last year's pro day, obviously Hendon Hooker was still injured, and all the scouts begged Josh Heupel to let Joe Milton throw that day for those receivers, for Tillman and Hyatt and those guys. And Josh Heupel wouldn't do it. He said he's not draftable yet, so I don't want to turn to the Joe Milton show. Now, a year later, after seeing a season of okay game film but not great game film, there's more doubt around Joe, and him throwing doesn't help him as much as it did last year because they already know he can do that. He did that in games, but it still didn't improve his play.
Does it almost amuse you, Adam, after covering Joe Milton now since he came to Tennessee in 2021, to see people new to watching Joe throw a football be as blown away by it as I guess we were the first time we saw him throw an orange 150 yards or whatever it was? I knew that would be the discussion going into the combine, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I mean, there's stages to seeing Joe Milton. It happened, and I've talked to people at his high school days, and then people that saw him at Michigan would tell us people around the Tennessee program that, hey, you're gonna be wowed by him throwing. And then you're going to see that a little bit in games, but then you're going to be frustrated by the fact that he doesn't develop as much during games, and it's always going to be that sort of carrot out there that you can't reach with Joe Milton. And that's been the case with the NFL scouts. Anytime somebody sees him, it takes about a year until you say, something's there, but it's not all there. And it's always seems to be more of a tease than anything.
Adam Sparks, our guest at Adam Sparks on Twitter of Knoxville News Sentinel. So to players that will be on the field for the Tennessee Vols in 2024, Adam, I feel like every time we get you on between now and the start of the season, we will do an obligatory Nico check. So, I know you guys talked to him the other day. What is your Nico Iamaleava status check a little over a week into spring ball?
Looks really good. Looks in command. He's put on, people always concerned about this with him. He's put on about 10 pounds. So when he got to campus more than a year ago, he was at 190. Last year he played at about 205. Now he's up to 215. So putting on weight, and you can see it. It's noticeable. It's a different demeanor with him. I mean, he said yesterday when he talked to us that he prepared to start, last year, that's what you're supposed to say. But last year he was like, his humility, his modesty and all that would always come across first. He was always sort of volunteering to step into the background behind Joe Milton would always, would talk about Joe. Anytime you ask him a question about anything, he would say, I'm learning from Joe. I just, I want to help Joe and whatever. Now that Joe Milton's not there and Nico's the surefire starter, you can see him much more comfortable step forward and talk about his game, and he doesn't have to sort of do that song and dance of being. He's still humble, but I think he's just so much more comfortable as the starter. And so, he faced a couple of tough questions yesterday and answered them very well. He comes off now as spokesman of the football team, certainly more than he did last year. A lot of maturity there, I think.
As far as the NCAA stuff with Tennessee, I know Nico was asked about it as well and kind of the support behind him, as he was reportedly a big piece of that investigation. Does that feel completely behind Tennessee now? Is there any next step in regards to the NCAA and the University of Tennessee, and obviously pertaining to Nico as well?
Yeah, technically there could be a next step, but in reality, it looks like it's kind of done. I mean, something would have to happen with that federal case. Momentum would have to go, the complete opposite way. And right now there's no rules to sort of be enforced against Tennessee on that. So nobody in that building is worried about the NCAA case. It's suspended, and I will be surprised if it's ever restarted again.
Peyton Manning was in the building recently. I saw you reporting on that. Talked to the team, talked to the quarterback room. What did you make of Peyton's visit and how it maybe impacted those guys?
Yeah, I mean, he does this about, a couple times a semester. He technically teaches a class. He does it on Zoom from afar throughout the year on campus. But he actually comes to the university a couple times a semester, and he goes around and sees all the different fundraisers and the president and the chancellor and athletic director and all that. He usually does this in about 24 hours, and he went over and saw the team and talk to the players and talk to quarterbacks. I think he touched base with some recruits that were around. And so he does that every once in a while. And, it's sort of always a parade when Peyton comes around.
Has the freshman receiver, Braylon Staley, been the flashiest sort of come out of nowhere guy so far in spring ball?
Of the freshmen, I would say yes, but there's a caveat to that, is that there's a scrimmage tomorrow, and it's the first scrimmage. We were talking about this yesterday, that every year you kind of pick a skill guy in that first week, and he kind of pops, and you say, okay, well, that's the guy that's gonna jump up this year. And then you wait till scrimmage happens. They put on the pads. There's some contact. And sometimes most of those times, those guys come back down to earth. It's usually with the skill guys. So, like, who was the running back a couple years ago? Justin Williams-Thomas.
Yes.
Cal. He transferred. I remember in spring that year, we were like, well, this guy's not only going to play, this guy's going to push for starting time. I mean, He's big, he's physical, he's very mature, looks like a college running back as a freshman. And we thought that through most of spring, and then Dylan Sampson arrived in the fall, and within a week we said, no, forget it. Dylan Sampson's the guy. So, these storylines can change pretty quickly. I'll be interested to see coming out of the scrimmage if Braylon Staley's still the guy. But yeah, so far he looks like Squirrel, and he's playing the position at slot. The one thing you could say is he's pushed Chaz Nimrod, who was the backup slot. He's pushed him to the outside, so he already looks better than a guy that's been there for this is his third year. So that's a statement within itself. But of what we've seen, he's looked best of the skill guys of the freshmen, at least on the offensive side. It's a little harder to judge on defense.
I know you've written about this on Knox News, too, about the Tennessee wide receiver competition. What does that look like right now? Understanding that Brew McCoy and Squirrel White, you know what role they're going to play, but is it sort of question marks beyond that as far as where guys are going to step up? Not necessarily about concern, because I think there's a lot of bodies there, but beyond Brew and Squirrel, what is that competition looking like?
Yeah, I mean, Squirrel, you pencil him in for sure. Brew, you do as long as he's healthy. Now, his rehab has gone great so far, but it was a gruesome injury, and he has to get his confidence back and all that. So they need 3 starters. They would need at least 4 guys because somebody's going to get hurt. They always do. You may even need 5 if Brew needs some time to sort of get back. So I think you've got to sort of get a front runner between Dante Thornton, last year's transfer, and Chris Brazzell, this year's transfer out of Tulane. Depending on the day that you look at those guys or who you talk to, one is a little ahead of the other one day, and then they swap the next day. So I think that's going to be a competition that's going to go all the way into fall. And they're similar body types and all that. So maybe both of them hit, but you need at least one of those 2 guys. Caleb Webb, Chaz Nimrod, I think one of those you would hope would pan out. I don't know that both will. They played some last year when Brew got hurt, but and then of the freshmen, Braylon Staley you mentioned, Mike Matthews, the 5-star, maybe one of those hits. So you're kind of saying you've got competitions with like 3 pairs. You would hope that one of the 3 pairs kind of pop, and when you get to fall, you can say maybe they're in the rotation. But that's tough to say. I think at the end of this spring practice, I'm going to have both eyes on the transfer portal, because I would just think, you don't know these guys personally how they feel about their future, but you would think a wide receiver would jump into the portal. You would think a defensive back would jump into the portal. It's just numbers wise, you would think that would happen with a few of those positions. And I'm always watching every day to see who feels like they're getting squeezed out.
Well, speaking of the defensive back room, I know Caleb Beasley, the freshman out of here in Nashville, suffered an early spring practice injury. What is kind of the state of that room that's obviously been a problem area for the Vols over the last few years?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because when I talk about the portal, because this is what happens with the transfer portal and with NIL now that didn't used to happen and a few years back, is that you recruit well to the position. They sit around and wait. Some of them are red shirt, and then they say, okay, now it's my time. Now I'm going to jump in and compete with other guys my age for the position. And Tennessee has had that. They had, especially a year ago, a really good recruiting class with DBs, and those guys just didn't play much. And it's because they had like 8 seniors in the secondary. Well, every one of those guys are gone now. And so you would think the younger guys step in, but they go and add 3 transfers from the portal in the secondary. And so it's kind of an odd deal when you're waiting for that. They've got some 4-stars that probably thought they were going to start, and then they bring in 3 transfers. And I would say probably 2 of those transfers are going to start at least. Jermod McCoy, the Oregon State transfer, I think you can pencil him as a starter at corner. Ricky Gibson, who's a sophomore, I think is probably going to be their other starting corner. They'll go deeper than that, but those are the 2 guys right now. Jalen McMurray, another transfer, he's sort of in the mix. I don't think he's going to start, though. Jacoby Thomas, the safety out of MTSU, a mid-state guy, they like him a lot. Very physical, very experienced. They like experienced safeties. So I would say McCoy and Jacoby Thomas both are probably going to take spots that probably younger guys thought that they were going to get.
Adam Sparks is our guest of Knox News, checking in from Tennessee Spring Football. You wrote on Knox News, Adam, the 4 biggest contributions to Tennessee's 4 losses in 2023. They were offensive line depth, particularly at center, with Cade Mays out against Florida, lack of wide receiver playmakers at Alabama, and linebacker play at Missouri, as well as secondary play against Georgia. What is Tennessee closest to fixing of those 4, and what are they furthest to fixing?
Ooh, that's tough. It's hard to judge linebacker at this point, but linebacker is an easy fix. If Keenan Peely is healthy and is good, and right now he's healthy, but we'll wait till the season. So that one's just going to be a wait and see. Wide receiver, I like the bodies that they have there. There's a lot of options. We've already gone through those. I think I think that probably depends as much on the quarterback as the wide receivers. The receivers just never got on the same page with Joe Milton last year. Maybe the change of quarterback helped some of that. Cooper Mays has barely gone through spring. He's out there some, and other days he's in sweats. Minor injury, but I think that's also strategic because they've given almost all the snaps at center to Bison Lang and William Satterwhite. He's a freshman, just got here, and that's intentional. Last year they lost the Florida game because they didn't have a backup center, so they're just giving all these reps to these guys, really just for them to feel like they are the starter. They're getting starter reps, so that way they're not put in that predicament again. I think that's coming along pretty well. I think Bison Lang has looked like a guy that could play center if needed, and Satterwhite's getting some time too. So, I think center's working out pretty well. I think by the end of this, they're going to feel pretty good about that position.
How do you feel about the running back room and the state of that right now with Dylan Sampson now having to be the guy, like you were talking about the way he flashed in spring ball a couple of years ago? Is it really down to Sampson and Cam Seldon at this point with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small out the door?
Well, Cam Seldon's had a minor injury in spring. I don't think it's going to be anything that affects him long term, but that really brings up the question of, well, if he's injured now a week into spring, what if he's injured in the fall? And it's Dylan Sampson, and I was going to say a bunch of other guys that haven't played, but Cam Seldon hasn't played except for really the Citrus Bowl. So you had a lot of inexperience. He had talent, but you had inexperience at that position. If one guy gets hurt, you're really hurting at that position. I think that's another question of when they come out of spring practice, does Tennessee look into the portal to add a running back? I mean, Sampson's going to give you plenty of carries. He's going to be your guy there, but you've got to have some depth. And Khalifa Keefe is the other guy. He's a power back. He can help them in some situations, but if he's your number 2 back, let's say if Seldon were to get injured in the fall, something like that, then I think you could be in a little bit of a predicament. So I think they're going to have to reevaluate that after the spring, see how Seldon is, see how quickly he comes back from this. Again, minor injury now, but you're just thinking through what could happen in the fall. Peyton Lewis is a guy that's here as a true freshman. He's injured, again, talented guy, true freshman, but he's also injured. So that just brings up questions of what if, and you certainly don't want to get to August and have to deal with these situations and go from what last year was 3 running backs to then Dylan Sampson, 1 running back, and not sure who the number 2 is.
Adam Sparks with us. Speaking of the transfer portal, Adam, Lance Hurd, the images are coming out of him. Obviously, we're not there over here in Nashville, but the images of him at spring practice, he certainly looks the part, the left tackle transfer from LSU. Do you get the feeling early on and after talking to him that he will play the part of a solution at left tackle for Tennessee?
Yeah, he absolutely looks the part. 6'6", 330, something like that. Really, really wide wingspan, built like an NFL left tackle. They like him a lot. He's not only a talented guy as a former 5-star, but he's a young guy. He just played a few games at LSU last year, so you can have him around for multiple years. I thought maybe this is just the cynic in me, but I thought the most important thing about yesterday when Lance Hurd came and talked to us for the first time, John Campbell, the right tackle, also talked to us. They came out together and really sort of showed their support for each other. Campbell was the left tackle last year. They moved him to right to bring in this transfer, Lance Hurd, to play left. And sometimes you can get animosity there. Tennessee's had it in past years where, they had it the last couple of years with Gerald Mincey. Wanted to play left, didn't want to be at right tackle. And so you always wonder about that if those guys are going to be okay. Lance Hurd was extremely humble yesterday, gave a lot of credit to John Campbell. John Campbell said he was, perfectly happy to be at right tackle, thought he fit there well, called Lance Hurd his boy. You like to see that camaraderie between those guys. So I thought that was a really, really good sign that these two guys that need to work together already have a really good relationship and an understanding that they're in probably their best spots at left and right tackle.
Adam Sparks has been our guest. Adam, thanks so much for the time, man, and we'll loop back down the road, certainly.
All right, good to be on. You have a good one.
Yes, sir. At Adam Sparks on Twitter is where you can find him. Great work on Knox News covering the Tennessee Volunteers football program. We mentioned it right before Adam hopped on. The physical is official for L'Jarius Sneed, now a Tennessee Titan after the trade with Kansas City. Of course, the Titans sending a 2025 third-round pick and a 2024 seventh-round pick swap with Kansas City. And L'Jarius Sneed comes in $76.4 million over 4 years, $55 million of it in guaranteed money, $20 million at signing. So we will await the cap details of L'Jarius Sneed and how that will affect the Titans' cap room in 2024, still with money to spend. And it seems like Rand Carthon and the Titans are going the patient route there, as opposed to, Houston, that seemingly made all of its free agency moves, maybe a little bit of wiggle room down the stretch for the rest of the season. But feels like the Titans are kind of standing pat at the moment and focusing on the draft before turning around and then supplementing after the fact and seeing how that board falls. Roll the dice, play the board, right, in Detroit for the 2024 NFL Draft. So L'Jarius Sneed passes his physical. We had talked a little bit about the knee injury and that being kind of a point of concern. I know a lot of Titans fans have brought it up over the course of the last few days since that trade was made official. And look, we talked about it yesterday. L'Jarius Sneed was on the injury report for pretty much the entire season. He didn't practice a lot in the 2023 season, but he was available. And he's been largely an available player throughout his career. Only played in 9 games his rookie year in 2020 after he was drafted in the 4th round out of La Tech. But since then, he's played in and started in 15, 17, and 16 games in the last 3 years for the Chiefs. So until it starts to affect his availability, I don't think the knee should be considered a big concern for L'Jarius Sneed. And I saw that PK Koharski caught up with Chiefs head coach Andy Reid yesterday, and Reid with nothing but glowing things to say about L'Jarius Sneed, kind of indicating it was more of a cap room situation for the Chiefs, called him their lockdown guy. And certainly the injury never affected his play on the field or his availability in games in 2023. So I don't think it's something Titans fans should necessarily be hung up on at the moment, although, of course, we will keep an eye on it. What made you say, oh no, in sports this weekend? We have a family 4-pack of Nashville SC tickets for this Saturday night at Geodis Park. Nashville hosting the defending MLS Cup champions, Columbus Crew. 615-737-1045 is the number. Call now. The best submission for what made you say, oh no, in sports this week is going to the game and taking the whole family with you on Saturday night. We'll do that next on 1045 The Zone. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets to Nashville Soccer Club's return to Geodis Park Saturday to host the defending MLS Cup champions Columbus Crew. All you got to do is give us what made you say, oh no, in sports this weekend. 615-737-1045. The best submission is headed to Geodis on Saturday night, and it's going to be a beautiful Saturday night. Should be a fun game. Last time these two teams met at Geodis Park, a 3-1 win for Nashville. I think it was the most entertaining game of the 2023 MLS regular season. So get in there. 737-1045 is the number. Jackson, hit it.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
615-737-1045 for your chance to jump in and give us what made you say, oh no, in sports for your chance at Nashville SC tickets. So while Jackson takes your calls, I will tell you mine. Last night, in the second round of the NCAA women's tournament, which has been really fun, by the way, some incredible games. Iowa survives an upset bid from 8-seed West Virginia. But my oh no of the sports weekend, the Tennessee Lady Vols, eliminated in the second round by NC State, a final of 79-72. Now, before I talk about Kelly Harper, I got to give the Lady Vols some credit. They were down 20 in this game, on the road, hostile environment. They showed some fight. They rallied to make it a 2-point game, but ultimately were knocked out by Kelly Harper's former employer, the NC State Wolfpack. Look, this team was inconsistent down the stretch. 5-5 in their last 10 games. Had an SEC semifinal win in the tournament against South Carolina. It was right there for the taking. But an inexcusable sequence defensively leads to the Gamecocks hitting a wide-open three at the buzzer. I know the girl had never hit a three in her career. I get that. But the way that was handled, that late-game management, was a huge red flag for me. And I like Kelly Harper, and I think she's a good basketball coach. And I know that she loves Tennessee women's basketball. But this team is not talented or deep enough to compete with the top of the sport. And I know Tennessee's given South Carolina some good games, but as a program, it does feel like the Lady Vols are light years away from what Don Staley is doing in Columbia, what's happening, obviously, at UConn. I mean, Tennessee is not close to competing for championships. They don't feel close. If the standard at Tennessee is to compete for and win championships, then there needs to be a change, because they don't appear close to competing for championships. If Tennessee loves Kelly Harper and wants to bring her back, that's fine. They just don't get to claim that the expectation is to win championships. Either go hire Carol Lawson, who's done a great job at Duke, or go outside of the Pat Summitt tree for the first time, that tree of former assistants and former players, and just go hire someone that will win. If you want to honor Pat Summitt in this program, just hire someone that will win and bring that standard back to Lady Vols basketball. That's my oh no of the weekend. Jackson, what you got?
I'm going with this Shohei Ohtani gambling situation. Apparently, Shohei Ohtani's interpreter stole $4.5 million in $500,000 increments and used them to gamble with a sportsbook or a bookkeeper that is under investigation by the IRS. And, you know, he was fired last week. Shohei Ohtani gave a press conference yesterday where he took no questions from the media. He read a short statement saying, I had no knowledge of this. The interpreter did it. Essentially, he did this all on his own. I had no involvement. And I just don't think this is going away anytime soon for baseball's biggest star that they can hang their hat on.
That is a crazy situation that we need to spend some more time on. Maybe talk to someone that's been covering it, but a good submission by you. Okay, let's get to the phones. Your the best oh no submission is headed to Geodis Park Saturday night with a 4-pack of Nashville SC tickets as they take on Columbus. Brian in the Borough kicks us off. Hey, Brian.
Hey, how we doing?
Good. What you got?
It sounded a little serious at first, but I'm going to go a little lighter here. I'm going to say Ramon's dunk on Bert this morning is my oh no. And sounds like Ramon needs to call Morgan and Morgan and Morgan and Morgan.
Brian, I'm going to put you back on hold. If you're the winner, stay on the line, and we'll get you in. I witnessed this. I witnessed the dunk by Ramon Foster on Robert Walsh. Quite literally, I walked into the building to see Robert emerging from the break room and walking towards me in the hallway. Ramon comes around the corner from behind Bert and is sneaking up on him. And I don't know what Ramon's about to do, but I did not expect to see Ramon to come up behind Bert and basically do a windmill dunk of Bert's big cup of water he was holding and send the water everywhere in the hallway. And I was standing there stunned. Bert was in shock. Ramon cleaned up the water, but a good submission by Brian and a great way to kickstart our morning.
But you saw it, so you're an accomplice to this.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I hope I didn't just out Ramon Foster.
Now you need Morgan and Morgan and Morgan.
I think I do. And Morgan and Morgan and Morgan. Kyle in Springfield is next. Hey, Kyle.
What's going on, boys?
What you got, man?
Mine's actually soccer related this week. My oh-no goes to the fans at the Mexico-U.S. game for seemingly chanting something bad enough. I think it was a 5-minute stoppage or a 10-minute stoppage that they imposed on the field.
Yeah, multiple stoppages. Thank you, Kyle. As Tennessee, USA, and Mexico were playing the CONCACAF Nations League final in Dallas on Sunday. Again, the USA won 2-0, 2-0. And it got ugly. And this has become a routine thing with fans of the Mexican national team, whether it's homophobic slurs that are creating a pause in the game, whether it's fans throwing hands at each other in the stands. There's never a shortage of chaos when USA and Mexico play each other. And, it is simultaneously terrible in a lot of ways, and the language that these fans are using, and also chaotic and kind of what defines the rivalry between USA and Mexico. Something like that's always going to happen. A good submission by Kyle. X in Nashville is next. Hey, X.
How you doing today?
Good. What you got?
The LSU coach, I think it's going to be a big scandal. Just from talking with some of my boys from LSU. I don't know. I think she got about a year left after this comes out. So that was mine.
Hey, thanks for the call, X. Yeah, Kim Mulkey is who he's talking about, who went on a tirade in front of the media saying she's going to sue the Washington Post, who reportedly had a piece coming out that had some very negative and revealing things about Kim Mulkey. Now, I've seen the Washington Post do some reporting on LSU, and I don't want to speak off base on this because I haven't read the article. So we will circle back to this, but I will say Kim Mulkey had a lengthy statement about that forthcoming article from the Post, and if Kim Mulkey did anything, she just ensured that everybody's going to go read that article. I will say that. Christian in Smyrna is next.
Publicity is great.
Hey, Christian.
Hey, what's up, boys? So mine is the NFL rules, the hip tackle specifically.
The hip drop, the swivel hip drop tackle. That's your oh-no of the weekend.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, thanks for the call, Christian. It's going to create a lot of frustrating moments for fans down the stretch. I'm sorry, Jackson, I cut you off. What did you have on Kim Mulkey?
I said free publicity is great publicity. I'm sure that journalist is very happy Kim Mulkey is
No
talking.
doubt. The engagement on that Washington Post article skyrocketed when Kim Mulkey decided to aggressively address it in front of the media. Robert in Nashville is next, going to finish us out. Hey, Robert.
Hi. The one I want to share with you is also an oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Kentucky got beat in the first round again. Okay, that's great. 49 other states love that. But the oh, no is now we've got to listen to more internal discussion about John Calipari's employment status at Kentucky. And the next sentence I hear about that will be about the 10,000th more than I ever really cared about. He and Patino and Kentucky and the whole Commonwealth of Kentucky, if I never hear anything about basketball in that state ever again, I won't have lost a thing.
Thanks for the call, Robert. It seems like Cal is sticking around. He did his radio show in Lexington yesterday talking about the changes that will come to the program. I don't think Cal's going anywhere. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Kentucky basketball down the road. They did hire a women's basketball coach. Kenny Brooks, who took Virginia Tech to the Final Four, reportedly will be one of the highest paid coaches in women's basketball. Lady Vols, are you paying attention? Because clearly the standard at Kentucky and the swing that Kentucky women's basketball just took, I think is something that a lot of Tennessee fans would like to see happen in Knoxville after flaming out in the second round of the tournament just yesterday. So Jackson and I will deliberate on the winner. Stay on the line if we've just taken your call. We'll pick up, tell you if you are headed to Geodis Park with that family 4-pack of tickets on Saturday. Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio will join us in studio next. Back to Draft Talk here on 104.5 The Zone.
It is 11:03. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. NFL owners meeting continues this week in Orlando, and we have more rule changes coming to fruition, including the NFL trade deadline has been moved back a week and will now be after week 9 of the regular season. The NFL has also approved a new hybrid kickoff model similar to the one that originated last year in the XFL. Vanderbilt has hired Mark Byington to be their new head men's basketball coach. Byington most recently led JMU to a 32-4 record and an opening round win over Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament. The Preds are back in action tonight against the Las Vegas Golden Knights tonight at Bridgestone Arena, looking to extend their franchise record point streak to 18 games. Puck drop for that one is at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
With NFL owners meetings in full swing down in Florida, it not only means it's rule change season, it also means it's draft gossip season. Owners, executives, head coaches, league personnel, media, all in the same place. It feeds the machine as Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio joins us here on 104.5 The Zone until 12 o'clock to talk about all the latest draft talk coming out of Orlando. Rhett, good morning.
Good morning. How we doing?
Doing great. Great to have you back in here. There was so much we didn't get to yesterday.
And then more has happened since.
More has happened since, and it's a good problem to have. We talked a lot about L'Jarius Sneed yesterday and how that could impact the Titans' approach in the draft.
Past his physical, he's a Titan.
He is a Titan. $55 million in guaranteed money. 76.4 is the total money. $20 million signing bonus. Let's start real quick with the kickoff rules and all the rule changes that we're seeing. One that we didn't mention, by the way, the league is moving the trade deadline from after week 8 to after week 9. And Adam Schefter, I saw, noted today that there will be another Christmas Day game in 2024, Christmas Day on Wednesday this year.
So that is now, that's the last day that the NFL has not played a game on. Check that off of the.
The NFL has never played a regular season game on a Wednesday.
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. That'll change.
We had
Christmas
the Tuesday.
Was that the first ever one? The Titans-Bills Tuesday game because of COVID? I
believe so.
First ever Tuesday night game.
And then you think about everything else has been covered. Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, all that stuff.
Yeah.
After the Black Friday stuff they did last season. I believe that's the last day of the week that is available.
Well, let's get into the draft buzz that's come out from Orlando. And I know Tom Pelissero made some waves on NFL Network yesterday talking about what he's hearing regarding the number 2 overall pick with the Washington Commanders.
Really interesting because everybody's always trying to figure out, especially at the top of the draft, what the other teams are doing. When I've had conversations here with executives for other teams who know Adam Peters well, know the situation well, the most popular answer for what they do at number 2 is J.J. McCarthy. So a lot of drama still to come.
Just like Mac Jones the last time Adam Peters had this situation.
Tom Pelissero of NFL Network saying that what he's hearing at owners' meetings is that Adam Peters likes J.J. McCarthy at 2. How surprised would you be, Rhett Bryan, if J.J. McCarthy was the second name read off by Roger Goodell after Caleb Williams in the NFL draft?
I'm going to answer it this way. Before the NFL Combine, I would have been pretty surprised. That is where that conversation started to pick up steam. I started to hear more and more buzz around his name that 1 month ago, and it wouldn't surprise me as much now. It wouldn't. I've thought that he had a really decent chance to be the 4th quarterback taken. Then as he performed well at the Combine and the opinion of NFL evaluators started to spike in what I've been understanding and hearing and reading, he can crack inside that top 4 of the quarterbacks. And listen, I'm all for whatever that's advantageous for the Titans. I hope all 4 of them go in the first 6 picks, because it could be a crazy situation that the Titans might have to choose or make a decision about at 7. But no, that it wouldn't completely surprise me.
You heard Steve Weish at the end of that clip talking about, hey, remember Mac Jones? This feels like the same thing with Mac Jones. And we did this with the 49ers ahead of the 2021 draft, correct? Where it's Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Mac Jones, where all the buzz was, the 49ers want Mac Jones. The 49ers are going to trade into the top 3 for Mac Jones. Ultimately, they do, but for Trey Lance. Mm-hmm. And Adam Peters was not the general manager of the 49ers. He was obviously in that office. But the names that popped into my head, Rhett, one name also from that QB class and one from last year, and that is Zach Wilson and Will Levis. Just in the discussion around those players where Zach Wilson skyrocketed, right, throughout the course of the offseason that led up to him being the number 2 overall pick, in large part due to his pro day performance. And with Will Levis, his name continued to rise in terms of where we thought he would go, and he ends up being the first quarterback taken in the second round. So is J.J. McCarthy going to be more like Zach Wilson or more like Will Levis or more like Mac Jones, where we hear about it, but that's not actually what materializes?
It's my belief that it'll be more like Zach Wilson. The more and more that I kind of hear things, see things, read things, I do believe that to be the case because – and you have a couple of outliers there that you've mentioned in Mac Jones and Will Levis. And you're right. This time of year ago, it's like Will Levis may be a top 3 pick, and he ended up being pick 33, right? So there's one thing Coach Dave McGinnis taught me well. There's the NFL draft, then there's the NFL draft that involves the quarterback position. It's 2 different things. And J.J. McCarthy, let's think about it this way. The difference between he and Will Levis is, J.J. McCarthy's coming off of, the first national championship for his college program in how long?
Late 90s. Yeah.
Right. So, and he became the fastest quarterback to 25 wins in the 144-year history of Michigan football. That's saying something. They've had a few guys come through those doors. The thing about him is he's got the size. He's got the arm talent, 6'2.5", 219. Collegiate career 65% completion percentage. I'm sorry, 67.6% completion percentage, 49 touchdowns to just 11 interceptions. And the thing about him is going to be what he does in the middle of the field, over the first line of defenders and in front of the second tier of defenders in the intermediate range of the field, the 10 to 20 yards out. He's really, really good. And the big thing that everybody, like all of us sitting around, we watched Michigan and how well they did. It's like, is he really that good? Is he really that? He wasn't asked to do a whole lot.
Yeah, it's hard.
But in the moments where he was, he actually did a very nice job. And clearly, I'm sure with the interviews, the whiteboard tests, all of those things, he has the acumen. And it is kind of crazy when you think about, well, I always thought it was going to be Caleb Williams, Drake May, in whatever order you want. Now there's a chance it's not, and it's something different. But the thing that gets me more excited is what could be waiting at number 7 for the Titans, left tackle or not. Could be crazy.
Well, McCarthy's QB rating definitely rose steadily through his 3 years, 167.4 in his last year at Michigan. You mentioned the touchdown to interception ratio, impressive the whole way through. And I remember when he officially took that job from Cade McNamara, who ended up transferring to Iowa, he just kind of layered in this element of athleticism, just a more dynamic player that kind of put Michigan over the top, yet still their identity never wavered in what Michigan was, in a run-first team, the best offensive line in college football, and a dominant defense. So I wonder how much of the buzz and the way that J.J. McCarthy's stock has risen is about coaches saying, okay, there's a guy with measurables, with athleticism that has the traits and clearly makes good decisions with the ball. Oh, I could do something with that, even if we haven't seen him asked to completely take over a game or elevate an offense on his own.
So think of it this way. A couple things. One, obviously, Jim Harbaugh is stumping for his guy.
Oh, best quarterback in the draft, right?
He could be the first one taken. Yeah. I think he will be. Well, he also told us there was going to be a record number of Michigan players at the NFL Combine. Guess what? There was. There was 18 guys there. But, all right, so that's tongue-in-cheek in terms of, okay, give me the real scuttlebutt on J.J. McCarthy, Coach. What did what does he do? But the film doesn't lie. And you said a word a moment ago, layered. Layered offensive throws, layering and moving offense is what he really excels at. And you're right. 67% of his passes were for first downs or more, moving the chains. And again, going back to the not asking him to do a whole lot could certainly dictate. I mean, think about this. If he were to go, and this is why, Caleb Williams at number one with the Bears, with what the Bears have been building and what they have done this offseason in acquisitions, he's set up for success. Well, it's the same kind of thing for a J.J. McCarthy. If you put him in a place where he does not have to do it all, you can learn through maybe what's going to be some of his rookie growing pains and allow him to get valuable reps and playing time. For example, like if he went third overall to the New England Patriots, their roster is not set up for his immediate success right now. However, someone who just made a move a few days ago to get an extra number one from the Houston Texans, that being the Minnesota Vikings, ammo to trade up. The Minnesota Vikings have a pretty doggone good team around him, and he could succeed in an environment like that. That would work pretty good for him. So, like Washington, not as good as an environment, It's exactly the reason why Bryce Young had a rough rookie season. There wasn't much around him.
There was nothing around him.
And their best receiver got traded to the Chicago Bears as a part of that whole deal so they could get him. So, there's a lot of variables and situations involved in this, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's in the top 4 picks at all. And he could very well be the number 2 pick. What would be crazy is if Jim Harbaugh is right and he's the first overall pick. Now, I think that would shock the draft world. But yeah, and there's a fascinating study that Bucky Brooks is doing right now. I heard him do, when he and Daniel Jeremiah do that Move the Sticks podcast, one of the latest episodes, he's doing the study about what's the tipping point in the secret sauce for a hit rate in a quarterback. And the median average is around 39 games of starting in college. And when I were to mention the quarterbacks involved, you go, okay, it makes sense. And, what is the qualifiers for what is a hit quarterback? Well, it's somebody who started a lot of games. Maybe he led them to the playoffs. Maybe they didn't win a world championship, but there was success there. And that's why I think the Titans think they have the answer in Will Levis, but they're not sure yet. Will Levis has 25 career starts in college. So, let's look, I know we got to go to break, but quickly. Caleb Williams, 33 career starts in college. Drake May, 26 career starts.
Bo Nix, about 82.
61. No kidding. The most
not even
in
that
college.
far.
The most in college history. Jaden Daniels, 55. J.J. McCarthy, 28. So, I mean, and you can look at historical, even before the 2011 CBA, before there was rookie slotted salaries and those things, and after, there's examples. And the two outliers in a huge window sample is 28 career starts by surprise, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
If you have a draft question for Rhett Bryan, we can take your call, 615-737-1045. But if J.J. McCarthy is a top 3 pick, how does it affect the rest of the quarterback draft and, in turn, the Tennessee Titans at 7? We'll get into it with Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio next on 104.5 The Zone. There's the quarterback draft and the rest of the draft. We hear it all the time from Rhett Bryan, from Coach Mack, and the great work Titans Radio does with the NFL draft. Welcome back. I'm Lucas Panzica. Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio in studio with us on 104.5 The Zone. Buck will be back tomorrow, unfortunately for all of us, but we get to have fun in the meantime. So,
unfortunately.
Sorry,
I just caught what you said. Wow.
This is a fun substitute teacher. You know that substitute teacher that you love, that always seems to come in for the teacher that you hate.
Those were some of the best days in school that weren't aligned with, it started snowing since we're at school and we're going to get out early.
Right. Did you learn anything? I don't know, but you had fun. So I feel like that's what we're doing here.
Don't really care.
We'll try to learn something here, though. Rhett, you being in here certainly helps that cause. We've been talking about J.J. McCarthy and the idea of the Commanders taking him at 2. Tom Pelissero and the people he's talked to at NFL owners meetings believe that's the route Adam Peters will go. So why don't we just go team by team of the 6 teams in front of the Titans in the draft and just look at every scenario? With that first pick, I mean, it's one scenario, correct? The Chicago Bears will have Caleb Williams as their starting quarterback.
I mean, you want to say that, and I do believe that to be the case, but at the very least, Chicago Bears, insert quarterback name here.
Yes.
At the very least.
Yes.
Because, Justin Fields is traded away, so yes, that's what they're doing.
I mean, they're not even trying to hide it at this point, Rhett. I mean, Matt Eberflus is talking about what a great teammate Caleb Williams is. Keenan Allen showing up to Caleb's pro day wearing all his Bears gear. I feel like it's the worst kept secret. When the Bears a few weeks ago maybe were the most interesting team in terms of what they could do with that pick. Are they committed to Fields? Do they trade back? But I feel like we're at a place now where Caleb Williams will be the franchise quarterback of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about the first 6 in front of the Titans, but they've got 1 and 9. I mean, they could do. You know what they could do? They could actually do some damage like the Houston Texans did last year. Maybe they take their quarterback and then they trade back up into the top 5 or whatever, and maybe get the best defender they want or another weapon for Caleb Williams. I mean, there's the possibilities are endless there. So,
yeah, and it's such a unique situation. When's the last time a number 1 overall pick at quarterback has walked into a situation as good as Williams is going to walk into Chicago? Because that roster on offense is starting to kind of develop around the quarterback position. And you almost hate it for Justin Fields because he did not have that luxury the first couple years of his career. But
that's typically what it is because you're so bad. The way you finish with your record, you have the top pick, and so here you go.
So it's a unique scenario where you bring in Keenan Allen in a trade with the Chargers. You have DJ Moore on the other side. There's some depth there at receiver. The offensive line taking shape. I mean, who's the running back that the Bears had brought in? That DeAndre Swift brought in from Philadelphia. So it's kind of developing nicely around Caleb Williams.
I'm going to say, and he wasn't the first overall pick, but he was a high pick. The last quarterback I can think of that went into a similar situation would have been Mark Sanchez with the Jets because he went to back-to-back AFC championship games. Of course, things went off the wheels or off the butt later with the butt fumble, but he would probably be the last one I can think of that would be going into a situation where there was a lot of talent around him.
Okay, number 2. The Washington Commanders. It feels like we've been in a place for weeks where this is either Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and now the conversation has turned into J.J. McCarthy, the betting odds shooting up for him to be the number 2 pick in the draft, so on and so forth. But we're all in agreement. The Washington Commanders take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick.
I would be shocked if they didn't because they traded Sam Howell. And, but yeah, and maybe some of this, because again, with what we talked about in the first segment, and by the way, if you didn't catch that, folks, go to the Zone Podcast and get that, rate, subscribe, like, all that good stuff and find it. But look, you're going to do your due diligence at the 2 spot with whoever the next 3 or 4 quarterbacks are to make sure you find the guy that you like, the guy that you think fits the best. What does he bring to the table? All those things. But yeah, for the longest time, it felt like next in line, Drake May, okay, maybe Jaden Daniels. Now, okay, maybe J.J. McCarthy. But no, I do believe that will be quarterback, and then maybe even where we're going with this next pick.
Is this where it starts to get interesting with the New England Patriots in that 3rd pick? Like, does this feel like the first opportunity for a wrinkle in the quarterback draft, whether the Patriots take Drake May or Jaden Daniels or whoever, or if they decide, look, this is a longer-term rebuild. Let's trade out of this and try and build out this roster to where we can put a guy in a better position to succeed next year, but you just don't know what that quarterback class is going to look like next year and where you're going to be picking, and you're sitting right there at 3. Is this where it starts to get interesting in terms of the quarterback?
It does, I do believe, Lucas, because, I mean, the posturing, or at least the attempt at it, has already started in the days leading up to the owners' meetings where, Gerard Mayo has said, we may be okay at quarterback because they signed Jacoby Brissett and brought him back. But to your point, next year's quarterback class, unless somebody just blows it out of the water in college football this fall, there's not a Caleb Williams. There's not maybe it's Shedeur Sanders or
Quinn Ewers.
Right. But it's not what we're talking about that's coming up in a month with this draft class. So, but they could throw a curveball. They really could. But I still think quarterback right there. Unless they, decide to take best player available that's not quarterback, and maybe they shock everybody and take Marvin Harrison Jr. there for Jacoby Brissett to throw. I don't know. But it feels like 3 quarterbacks in a row as we go through this.
Would J.J. McCarthy going 2, then with 2 picks off the board and Drake May and Jaden Daniels still up there, would that maybe accelerate the process of a team desperately trying to get back into that top 4? J.J. McCarthy rising up and getting picked over May and Daniels, and then suddenly the Arizona Cardinals are sitting there like, well, I got the Vikings, and I got the Falcons, and I got the Raiders calling me. Do I want to take Marvin Harrison Jr. and give Kyler Murray the best receiver in this draft, or do I want to, if I'm Monty Austin for it, spin this into something as teams are climbing over each other to go get Drake May or Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, because the pod that you're talking about that could be active in this is 11 with the Minnesota Vikings, which they have 11 and now, 23, Houston's old pick. And then the Denver Broncos at 12, and then 13, the Las Vegas Raiders. You can give Gardner Minshew a deal all you want. Those 3 are going to be the team, and maybe more, pick 11 with Vikings, pick 12 with Broncos as the more likely to start to leapfrog somebody to get into the fray right there. Because, first of all, let's just say that it is Caleb Williams at 1 to the Bears, and let's say it's J.J. McCarthy to the Commanders at 2. New England has an opportunity to either trade out and get themselves better in other places with a bridge quarterback who has proven himself to be able to play. Like Jacoby Brissett, I don't think it's a bad option. I consider him a little more of a backup, but or do you start to think about who, do they take Drake May right there? Or do they decide to take Jaden Daniels, knowing that he could learn for at least a while and maybe a whole season under Jacoby Brissett until you can get more things around him? But yeah, Monty Ossenfort said what every general manager's saying openly is like, yeah, the phone lines are open. Rand Carthon's saying the same thing, I'm sure. Why wouldn't you at least hear offers, much less consider them?
Yeah, Carthon said as much at the Combine, certainly. And then with that 5th pick, the Los Angeles Chargers. So this feels like where the options start to really diversify, right? Where a team can go multiple different ways. Because with the Cardinals, it feels like to me it's wide receiver or trade out. With the Chargers, Rhett, I could see trading back. I could see a team that could be in the market for a left tackle, but suddenly the needs at wide receiver are there because Keenan Allen's gone. Mike Williams got cut. He's a New York Jet. The Chargers feel like the first sort of wild card team in that top 5 that could go one of multiple different routes because, yes, Justin Herbert's in there. Jim Harbaugh comes in, but that team quietly has a bunch of needs on the roster.
They do. I mean, think about it. Kenneth Murray is a Titan now. There's a very good off-ball linebacker that there's a hole there in that defense. No Austin Eckler there. And they're not going to take a running back there. I know that's not going to be the case. But, yes, to your point, they could go tackle. They could go wide receiver. I think it's going to come down to taking wide receiver or trading back.
For the Chargers.
For them. I think that's where it's leaning because getting Justin Herbert, getting him Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors, that ain't a bad thing. But you can also make that argument about, well, protect your investment. You want to keep Justin Herbert upright and healthy. So, but yeah, I feel like I'm with you. I think 5 is where it could really go crazy.
And then there's the Giants at 6. And you can listen to Rich Eisen, who said from the Combine, one of his biggest takeaways was the Giants have buyer's remorse on Daniel Jones, that feels like a situation that's fizzled. The Giants could go receiver here, right? They could go offensive line here. They could trade back. Is there a world where they go quarterback here? Is there a world where Drake May is kind of the straggler? The top 5 is gone, and McCarthy did go number 2, and Jaden Daniels got scooped up, whether it was the Patriots or somebody trading up to 3. And Drake May sitting there at 6, and the Giants say, okay, let's go get our guy, and let's just hit the reset button on this quarterback position. Or is that kind of an unrealistic scenario to you because of the opportunity that there would then be to trade up in front of the Giants and maybe take May?
I'd have to go look and see what their cap situation is, but that's not out of the realm of possibility. I think if you'd have told them months ago that, hey, you got a chance to draft Drake May at 5. Nah, there's no way he makes it out of the top 3. If he's there, that could very well be the call. I could see left tackle. I could see wide receiver. But, yeah, depending on who's sitting there, they could pull the trigger and get the quarterback. And, look, the Denver Broncos weren't afraid to take a bath in one of the worst contracts in history. Was how much? $165 million guaranteed for 11 starts or whatever it was with the Russell Wilson. Stranger things have happened because it's just happened. But yeah, that if the right person is there, that could either way, with these scenarios we're talking through. First of all, the Titans were going to get a really good player at 7 to begin with. Now, what are their options? Depend on how that first 6 plays out.
Just the way the J.J. McCarthy conversation has played out, to where weeks ago, pre-combine, we were thinking, what were you thinking? Middle first round, kind of the teens, that range for J.J. McCarthy pre-combine? Is that kind of ballpark where we were with the Michigan quarterback? Yeah. So suddenly, if he is in that top 3 discussion, that would only benefit the Titans, right? In terms of what could give them the most options at 7.
It's a place where you're not drafting in that position this year. And every time that something's moved ahead of you and picked selected ahead of you that is not something that maybe you are in need of, in love with, whatever, on your draft board, all it does is shove talent down to your spot. So, yeah, it absolutely would be advantageous for the Titans.
We've gotten some questions about Brock Bowers in the F&M Bank chat. Is he another sort of wild card prospect in this draft, in terms of a guy that if a team loves him, believes he is a Travis Kelce clone, like some people think, that, yeah, he's worth that top 10 pick? Or does he end up being that, wow, I can't believe he was there at 17 kind of pick?
I think he goes somewhere before the middle of the draft and possibly way up high up in there, just because, and I said it yesterday, he is a move piece, a chess piece for you for sure, a mismatch nightmare. In what NFL offenses are doing now, he's going to have success pretty early on. And I also said he's top 5 talent in this draft. He is. And that's why I'm saying, look, at 7, if somehow Joe Alt and Ola Fashanu are gone and Brock Bowers is sitting there, and there's a couple of things that would make me say, okay, let's wait and not pick a tackle right this second. Let's do that at 38. And it would be maybe Brock Bowers, but certainly Marvin Harrison Jr. If that was to be the case, I don't think you can pass on those guys. So, again, it all depends on who's sitting there and what's happened in front of you. My preference personally would be Joe Alt at 7. But look, the guy's going to be a bookend tackle for quite a while, whether it's Will Levis or whether it's someone else. You're still going to have to protect that investment going forward.
And again, we talked about this yesterday, have yet to hear a concrete and competent solution at left tackle beyond taking one in the first round of the draft.
Yeah,
I've yet to hear one.
Well, and what they have done in this first wave and a half, 2 waves of free agency leads you to believe that this is probably what the answer is. I mean, look, what they've done in adding pieces, it's so good with how they've set up what their situation and plan of attack is in this draft. Because there's still needs for sure, but when you look at the free agent tackle market, look, I don't think you were going to overpay for free agents as it is, regardless of position. That's why they're free agents, right? The free agent tackle market, look at how long it took. It took several days for Tyron Smith to end up with the New York Jets, and he got 33 years old. He's missed 38 games in his last 4 seasons.
And they could still draft a tackle.
They absolutely could. And that what I'm saying about that particular position is very rarely is there a talent that you're able to get your hands on. Those guys are usually under contract, or if they're moved on from, it's because they've had medical issues or whatever. So I would prefer that they build that cornerstone piece through the draft and, again, put him next to Peter Skoronski and let him go.
Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio is in studio with us talking NFL draft that begins 1 month from yesterday. Some day 2 and 3 names to keep an eye on for the Tennessee Titans. We'll get into that next on 104.5 The Zone.
Below MSRP? Below MSRP. Below MSRP. It's pretty simple. Two Rivers Ford sells all new non-specialty Fords below MSRP.
The guaranteed offer is the easiest way to sell your home. It's really simple. We bring you an all-cash offer. You close in as little as 21 days. No home inspections, no lock boxes, no open houses. Go to markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer and start packing.
Coming back to a little Chuck Berry with Rhett Bryan in studio of Titans Radio. I'm Lucas Panzica. Draft Talk on 104.5 The Zone. A draft hour with Rhett Bryan. I was in Cleveland over the weekend and got to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the first time.
Tell me how that was, because as many times I've been to Cleveland, it's usually we're playing the Browns, and it's usually because they're bad and we're playing on a noon Sunday kick. So we're setting up equipment at Brown Stadium, so I never get a chance to – it's right next door to it.
Literally.
And I've driven by it a million times. I've always wanted to go.
You need to go.
Worth a visit,
You need to go. Yeah. It is. With what I know about you and your musical taste, you need to go.
It's in me wheelhouse.
Like, you could spend 6-7 hours in that place.
Mm-hmm.
With the way it kind of goes bottom up to the roots of rock music. It's hip hop, it's country, it's blues, it's gospel. And they kind of blend it into...
It's the musical family tree.
Sure. And they blend it into then how that turned into Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis. And you need to go. That's my tip for the day. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you like any genre of music, honestly, go check it out in Cleveland. Worth a visit. So Jim Wyatt has been down at the owners' meetings and doing some great reporting, as always, talking to Rand Carthon, to Brian Callahan. And he specifically asked in his kind of tackling a bunch of topics. The article was Titans head coach Brian Callahan tackles a bunch of topics from NFL owners' meetings. There's a bunch of stuff in here. But Jim specifically asks Brian Callahan on TennesseeTitans.com how he views the team's edge rushing position. The answer is, quote, I think good. I think with Harold Landry, we've got a guy with a proven ability to rush. I think Arden Key is a proven situational rusher. I think he played really well last year. He said, I think we still need more. You can never have enough pass rushers. I think we've got guys who have proven themselves with the ability to do it. You'd like to have 3 of them. You'd like to have 4 of them. I think we do have some guys that can rush the passer, and we'll keep trying to add guys to the position. So let's talk about the edge rusher position in the draft, Rhett, with Dallas Turner, Darius Robinson, Chop Robinson, kind of topping that list. But when you're looking at day 2, day 3, who are the names that come to mind that Titans fans maybe are going to want to start looking ahead to as potential late additions in the draft?
Let me give you one that I really like. In fact, Coach Mack and I really like this guy. Saw him at the Senior Bowl and kind of watched him. He had a nice combine, but it's Marshawn Nealand from Western Michigan. Marshawn is 6'3", 267, arms 34 and a half inches long. His wing is like 83. He's a long prospect. Ran a 4.75 40. And that, okay, that's not world speed record. But, I mean, look, you're not asking him to run 80 yards. His first 10 yards, 1.66. Vertical leap, 35 and a half inches. Broad at nearly 10 feet. 3-cone drill, just a little over 7 seconds. 21 reps at 225. He was the college teammate of a guy I mentioned yesterday, kind of my draft crush, Braden Fisk, the defensive lineman from Florida State. They both played at Western Michigan before Fisk transferred to FSU. But good motor, good production, super heavy, violent hands. This dude, he can shock and shed a block. I just, like anybody else, coming into this, he's going to have to work on his pass rush repertoire, but I like this guy just because he's long and he's not the bendiest guy in the world. Harold Landry is that, but when I hear what you were quoting from Jim Wyatt from Coach Brian Callahan, is that he said he talked about Harold, but he said Arden Key is a proven situational pass rusher. And that's right. I do believe Arden Key is probably best used in those short reps where he can disrupt and get after it. Because the more that he played down the stretch, I think the more that he had some issues with production. So I think you're reading the tea leaves right in the terms of what you're seeing there from Jim Wyatt. But that's a guy that's a day 2 kind of guy. Some other names to kind of think about. You mentioned, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Liatu Latu from UCLA, Chop Robinson. Those are the guys that are probably going to go on Thursday night in the first round. I think one that's going to be close is going to be Darius Robinson from Mizzou, who is a proven player in the Southeastern Conference. Then you start getting into the other Alabama rusher in Chris Braswell, who is also, again, SEC pedigree proven. Adisa Isaac from Penn State, Braylon Trice from the University of Washington, who went deep into the college playoffs, Austin Booker from Kansas, 6'4", and 240 pounds. And I mentioned Marshawn Nealand. Jonah Ellis from Utah, 6'2", 248, a little undersized. But he's one of like 13 players that are second-generational draftees in this. His father was Luther Ellis, a top pick of the Detroit Lions many years ago. Those are some guys that you could see on day 2 going into day 3 that could help you. And there is some other help later on. When you get to a certain point, though, you get to where they're more developmental than they are ready to go in just a moment's notice. A lot of these guys, when you get past the names I mentioned, they're going to be tested and tried as not only a special teamer but a situational pass rusher too. But some of those guys, I mean, Dallas Turner is the leader in the clubhouse in this, and that's the one you see the most commonly mocked to the Falcons at 9. Or 8. I think they're at 8. But there is some help there.
You mentioned Dallas Turner. You mentioned Chris Braswell. Will Anderson, obviously a top 10 pick last year, Defensive Rookie of the Year with the Texans. Those 3 guys on the same team in Alabama in 2022 in that NASCAR pass rush package. Just crazy to think about all them being on the field together. But you like the depth overall at edge rusher, maybe more so than on the interior of the defensive line, where there are needs as well for the Titans?
Yeah, it's not as deep at the interior spots, but now there are. I mentioned, Braden Fisk yesterday, but there are some other options there. One in particular, I'll get to this guy right here in just a second. There's a guy who played at Duke.
Those pages you hear are months and months of draft prep with Titans Radio.
So there is a guy who played at Duke, and Dwayne Carter, and he is the only 3-time team captain in Duke football history. So the leadership skills are there. And the thing about him is, now if you're an evaluator, you're trying to figure out where exactly does he play.
No relation to Lil Wayne, I assume.
Correct. But Dwayne Carter played on every position on the D-line during his time at Duke, and a very productive player. You could say he's probably a little on the smaller side, a little on the short on the arms part of things, but the effort and the know-how and the more you can know and do is there for sure. But yeah, Gabe Hall from Baylor, Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State. There are names littered throughout this, and then there's some small school guys. You go back to pass rusher for a second. The guy that we interviewed at the Senior Bowl, Jalix Hunt from Houston Christian, is a super interesting prospect. He's going to be somebody that's going to be developmental, but I think he's going to make somebody a nice player in a couple of years. Played in the Ivy League before transferring to Houston Christian, so he's no dummy. He's a smart guy and a long prospect. Jalix Hunt, remember that name.
Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio has all the draft insight. I'm sure you'll hear much more of it from now until the NFL draft 1 month from now. Rhett, hey, appreciate you being here these last couple days.
I'm glad to do it, and I'm kind of sad that the Lucas Panzica show only has a couple more hours before who comes back tomorrow. Doggone it.
Yes, more work to be done.
Another hour, and then it's back to usual.
We'll see if his key card works on his way back tomorrow. TBD. But Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio has been our guest talking draft yesterday and today. We mentioned some of what Brian Callahan had to say about the edge rushers with Jim Wyatt. What else did the Titans head coach have from NFL owners meetings? Some interesting stuff in there. We will hear from Callahan next on 104.5 The Zone.
It's 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Jackson Williams. NFL owners meetings continue this week in Orlando, and we have more rule changes coming to fruition, including the NFL trade deadline has been moved back a week and will now be after week 9 of the regular season. The NFL has also approved a new hybrid kickoff model similar to the one that originated last year in the XFL. Vanderbilt has hired Mark Byington to be their new head men's basketball coach. Byington most recently led JMU to a 32-4 record and an opening round win over Wisconsin in the NCAA tournament. The Nashville Preds back in action tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights tonight at Bridgestone Arena, looking to continue their franchise record point streak to 18 games. Puck drop for that one is at 7 o'clock. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So Roger Goodell currently speaking at NFL owners meetings in Florida as owners pass the new hybrid kickoff rule. We told you yesterday the swivel hip drop tackle has been banned unanimously from NFL owners. You heard in Jackson Williams' update as well. The trade deadline has been moved up to week 9. The NFL also announces that the Philadelphia Eagles season opener in São Paulo, Brazil this fall will be on Peacock. 2 stream-only games happening this season, one in the regular season, another one in the postseason. Welcome back. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is making this show happen. Buck will be back tomorrow. Big thanks to Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio for being with us for the 11 o'clock hour. If you missed any of that draft stuff from Rhett, and there was a lot there, be sure to check it out on the podcast, The Buck Rising Show. Rate, review, and subscribe. 615-737-1045 is the number for you to jump in. This is a fun draft to talk about. And I guess we probably do that every year. And it has a lot to do with the quarterback class and all the different moving parts in the QB-needy teams. But just in terms of that top 3, indisputably 3 teams in desperate need of a franchise quarterback. And then you've got kind of the stragglers, right? You've got the Vikings who just sneak up with that 23rd pick in the exchange with the Texans, giving themselves some ammo. They do have the 11th pick. They also have the 23rd pick in the draft, just kind of sitting there. Feels like Minnesota waiting to pounce for an opportunity to go get their quarterback and inject him into a good situation. The Falcons, what do? I mean, the roster is competent around Kirk Cousins, but do they want to go ahead and bring somebody in to solidify that position beyond Kirk? I don't know. I think I'd be surprised at this point with the money they've given to Kirk Cousins and just how all in they are on the veteran who signed as a free agent out of Minnesota this offseason. The Raiders, same thing. Who in the world is going to play quarterback for the Raiders? And then the biggest question of all for me in terms of those teams outside of the top 10 that need a quarterback, the Denver Broncos. Is anybody in more desperate need to find a solution at quarterback than Denver out of those teams, out of the Raiders and the Vikings and the Broncos that are sitting there maybe in a position to move up? Because I think that's the answer. I just cannot see you spending all that money just for Russell Wilson not to play on your team for the solution to be free agent signing Ryan Tannehill.
It's got to be a rookie. You have to be building this from scratch at this point. The veteran option, you've tried to build the veteran way for a while. You've tried the draft too. You have to find your guy. And they have not been able to find a guy since Peyton Manning retired after Super Bowl 50.
You have to have a solution. Yeah. And does it need to be better than Bo Nix or Michael Penix, who could be kind of those quarterback stragglers that fall out of the top 10, especially if J.J. McCarthy is indeed a top 5 pick like many people are thinking right now? I can't wait to find that out about J.J. McCarthy. Is he Zach Wilson, who received all the draft buzz with his pro day and just the lead up to the draft process and the draft process itself, and did end up being taken number 2 overall? Or will he be more like Will Levis, who got all the buzz, was being talked about as a top 5 pick, almost surefire? ESPN had Will Levis with a 0.1% chance to fall out of the first round, and that's what happened. Or will he be more like Mac Jones, where the talk is there? The 49ers, there's the Adam Peters connection with Washington, want to trade up to 3 for Mac Jones. They trade up to 3, but for Trey Lance, and Mac Jones goes basically where we thought he would, middle first round to the Patriots. So be interesting to see how all of that plays out. Brian Callahan, down at owners' meeting, speaking with Jim Wyatt, was asked about a lot of things. The L'Jarius Sneed trade, for one. He was not able to really comment on that. And if you're just now tuning in, L'Jarius Sneed has passed his physical with the Titans. That deal has become official, so the next time Callahan and Carthon speak, they will be able to comment on it. But Callahan didn't really have anything on L'Jarius Sneed, although Paul Kaharski did catch up with Andy Reid. Go to PK's Twitter if you want to see those comments. Some glowing things from Reid about his lockdown quarter, called him our lockdown guy, L'Jarius Sneed from 2023. Anyway, here's Brian Callahan sitting down with Jim Wyatt talking about the Calvin Ridley acquisition and the process that led to getting the former Jags receiver.
Ridley was a guy that we had conversations about. We were going to see where his market was, and as kind of days went by, we felt like that market was something that we were in the same ballpark as. And so as the days went on, we just kind of monitored it. And then one day, Rand came in and he had a thought about it and said, you know what, he goes, let's call Calvin's agent. Let's see where that's at. And it turns out that it was something that we could enter into, because we had 2 or 3 other targets that were out there that we had allocated some money for. They ended up going other places, and all of a sudden we had more to offer. And that's the beauty of free agency. That's what makes it fun, is your ability to pivot and your ability to, when you miss on something, to try to do something else with it. And so that part allowed us to go after Calvin, and I think that we made a push in the process to go get him.
It is refreshing just how honest Brian Callahan is about this stuff. Yeah, we missed on some guys. We had to pivot, and just taking us through the process like there's no harm in telling us what happened, because there isn't.
New era.
New era, indeed. So he mentions missing out on 2 or 3 guys, having to pivot. So who are those players that we think the Titans missed out on? Rand Carthon gave some insight to this with Jim Wyatt as well. Man, Jim getting a lot of work done down in Orlando, as is tradition with Jim Wyatt, TennesseeTitans.com. Here's the quote from Rand Carthon. He said, "If I'm being honest, we weren't able to get Azeez done," talking, of course, about Azeez Al-Shaair. "We weren't able to get Danico Autry done, and those were 2 guys of our own that you'd like to have back," Carthon said, "but they ultimately made a decision that was best for them and their families, and it's like anything else, when one door closes, another opens, and us being able to pivot and be fluid allowed us to make some other moves." So just connecting dots there. I don't know if those are the players that Brian Callahan is referencing or are referencing, but both of those obviously end up in Houston, in Azeez Al-Shaair and Danico Autry. If the Titans had been able to retain those 2, think about how much better we'd be feeling about this Titans defense and its ability to compete as a whole right now if they had stayed in-house.
Yeah, but think about, I don't think Calvin Ridley's a Titan at that point.
Sure.
Because with the way they're talking, it was, we missed out on Azeez and Danico, or insert player here, probably defensively. We got extra money. Let's throw it at a big-time wide receiver. Let's get our quarterback a number 1 wideout. So I think it's you don't get both. Can't have both.
Why not, though? The Titans
probably could.
The Titans still have money to sort of. They have that flexibility still. Titans are still top 5 in the NFL and cap money, whatever you think of the cap. But Danico Autry signs a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Houston Texans. So we don't know what those discussions were like between the Titans and Danico Autry. Azeez Al-Shaair signs a 3-year deal worth $34 million with the Houston Texans. We don't know what those discussions were. I'm imagining they were not willing to go that far with Alshire, with what they brought in or what they paid Kenneth Murray coming in as a free agent from the Chargers. But I guess we'll never know the answer to those questions. But I do think about how much better we'd feel about this defense with those two guys if they had remained. There would still be holes, don't get me wrong. I mean, you'd still need a safety. You still would need depth essentially everywhere. But I will say this. Hearing Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan speaking separately to the same person, but speaking separately, we hear the word lockstep. It's this buzzword that kept coming up with Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon. It's continued with Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. That is what lockstep sounds like to me. Those two sound like they're on the same page. So you do have to give them that. 615-737-1045. I saw Robert Kraft detailed why Calvin Ridley did not go to New England. Jackson, did you see this from the Patriots owner?
I did. It seemed a little, I think he was a little hurt.
Well, his girlfriend wanted to live in the South was Robert Kraft's reasoning about why the Pats were not able to get a deal done with Ridley. Remember, it was Jags and Pats. It was a 2-horse race until it wasn't. But here's the tweet from Mike Reese, ESPN NFL Nation reporter who does a great job covering New England. Robert Kraft shares that Calvin Ridley told the Patriots his girlfriend preferred to be in the South. He said the team had been willing to make up the difference in taxes between Massachusetts and Tennessee, while acknowledging that the quarterback situation could have been a factor. Now, no, Calvin Ridley, it is not his girlfriend, but his wife. He has a wife and a child.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
yes,
that's how
he is married.
He talked about his wife in his introductory presser here.
Yes.
And, I mean, Robert Kraft can't feel good about losing another big-time wide receiver to Tennessee. 2 off seasons in a row. They've had a wide receiver in their backyard and have not been, or not in their backyard, but they've been close on 2 wide receivers and both have ended up Titans.
I mean, you talk about a no-brainer. If the money's going to be even, and maybe even a little more from the Patriots with that difference Robert Kraft is talking about in state income tax, it's still such a no-brainer, right? You stay in the South closer to home. You have a much more steady quarterback situation. You have an offense-friendly head coach, an offensively driven head coach with the pieces kind of starting to fall in place a little bit in terms of quality starters on both sides of the ball in free agency.
You're not the only wide receiver on the roster.
Yeah. Opposite DeAndre Hopkins, it had to be a no-brainer, I would think, for Calvin Ridley.
I think it was Jacksonville and Tennessee as the top 2.
Well, he straight up admitted, yeah, I wanted to come back to Jacksonville, but the money was better here. He said that, too. Again, refreshing to hear that type of honesty from a player, and that's fine. That's fine. He's a Tennessee Titan now, and big move from Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. 615-737-1045 is the number. When we come back, we'll hear from Dylan in Antioch, take your phone calls, as well as free agency superlatives. Who had the most surprising move of the offseason? The least surprising, the most underrated, the biggest winner, the biggest loser. We'll go through all of it, and we want to hear from you. Again, 615-737-1045, talking free agency across the league when we come back on 104.5 The Zone.
You know what you're going to love? If you need to regain your freedom of movement, QC Kinetics. They're there to help you work through that process as we get into spring. Spring is already here. As we get further into spring and into summer as well. It's the time of year that you want to enjoy life. QC Kinetics is literally transforming lives, as a matter of fact. Their advanced treatments harness your body's ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. Pro athletes have been doing these kind of treatments for decades, but now this life-changing treatment is available for you. So you can walk, run, climb stairs, play golf, and move again pain-free. No pain pills, no risky surgery. It's an all-natural solution. QC Kinetics has tens of thousands of satisfied patients who have reclaimed their mobility. So take action now and live your best life this spring and summer. It's a great use of your tax refund check, by the way. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation at 615-249-4024. That's 615-249-4024.
As the dust settles on the first couple waves of the NFL's free agency period, did the Titans have the most interesting start to free agency in the NFL? I think an argument could be made for that. However you want to define that. If it means splashiest, headline-grabbing moves, I certainly think the Titans are in the mix for that with Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed and Lloyd Cushenberry. A center signing isn't necessarily splashy, headline-grabbing news, in terms of the NFL as a whole, but I think there's an argument to be made for that. 615-737-1045. Jackson, would you put the Titans in that category, most interesting free agency period in the NFL?
I think definitely the most surprising, and surprising equals interesting. So, Calvin Ridley deal comes out of nowhere. Everybody's saying a Snead trade probably won't get done. And, the Chiefs are, talks have stalled. And then all of a sudden Friday night, L'Jarius Sneed's a Titan. And then, Tony Pollard, one of the first signings out of the gate in free agency. No one saw the Titans signing Tony Pollard. I mean, it feels like the Titans have just consistently surprised people throughout this free agency cycle so far.
We'll do some free agency superlatives in terms of specific moves, whether it is most surprising, least surprising, most underrated, here in a little bit. And again, 615-737-1045 if you want to chime in. The F&M Bank chat open as well, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. But we will go to the phones. Dylan in Antioch is next on the zone. Hey, Dylan.
Hey, what's up, Lucas? Yeah, I just want to chime in real quick. I think this is a great draft for the Titans to be where they are at 7. It's so volatile. You got these quarterbacks, wide receivers, tackles all up there. And where the Titans are, I mean, you got Denver and Vegas at 12 and 13, possibly needing a quarterback. If something falls, if something happens, I think it's an absolute no-brainer to trade back. You can get somebody in the second round that may have the value of a first rounder. I just think that's got to be the move. If it's possible, you got to have a trading partner. But just want to say that, and let me hang on the line for a minute so I can hear your response.
Well, Dylan, real quick, if the Titans are trading back, what is your solution to left tackle, if that is the case?
Apparently there's a lot of good ones. That's what I hear. I mean, I haven't researched it, but, you can find yourself a left tackle. This is just what I hear. I really haven't done the research myself, but
sure.
Apparently it's a deep draft, right?
Thanks for the call, Dylan. It is. Look, it's a deep draft at the tackle position, but just for a team that has struggled so much with that position over the last few years and what you did to give Will Levis weapons, bringing in Calvin Ridley, and you can still address we've talked about this with Rhett yesterday. The wide receiver class in this draft is far deeper than the left tackle class. So I can hear an argument about Brock Bowers because that's just if you think that's a generational type player, that's a Travis Kelce type of impact, I could hear that. And then you try to find that solution down the road. But apart from that, I have a hard time not taking a tackle at 7 or trading back into middle of the first round and finding a solution there, depending on how the board kind of falls. I think the signing of Calvin Ridley kind of solidified it for me. Take a left tackle with that first round pick. And I think the Bill Callahan hiring as the offensive line coach is one thing that has given Titans fans a reason to say, well, he can just coach them up, right? Go get a guy on day 2, on day 3, and Bill Callahan will get them right. But I don't know if the Titans are thinking that way.
And he can't work miracles. Like, if a player is not good, he's just not good. Excellent. Titans hired an excellent O-line coach in Bill Callahan. Probably, if not the best, top 2 in the league. He cannot work miracles here.
And Brian Callahan talked about it at the Combine. When elite coaching meets elite players, something special happens. And with how dreadful the left tackle position has been for the Titans over the last few years, I don't think just a down the road in the draft project solution is good enough. You need a guy that can come in and play day 1. Day 1. You don't have a stopgap in there. There's not a stopgap out there for you to go pick up in free agency. That person's not around. Go get somebody that can start day 1.
You tried to get a stopgap, and you missed on both of those picks with Isaiah Wilson, Dylan Radins. You potentially could have had a stopgap, but you missed. You need to take the best player available, and you have a pick to be able to take the best offensive lineman available. I don't see a reason to trade back, and I understand it's attractive to acquire more picks, but at this point, you have a chance to solidify the left side of your line for 10-plus years.
Adam on the F&M Bank chat says it's a deep draft at left tackle does not mean that there will be a starting left tackle at 38. And I think that sums it up pretty well. Whereas at wide receiver, you can find a good player at 38. You can find a player that can come in and help day one, and he doesn't have to be your number one guy. That's the beauty of it. The left tackle that you take probably has to be that guy. So why not take the best prospect available at that 7th spot? 615-737-1045. Brandon in Lebanon is next on the Zone. What's up, Brandon?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
What you got?
So, with all these free agents that we have acquisitioned, why is it that a lot of places that I'm looking, the free agency grade is so low? Like I've seen where we have gotten to see. I know it really doesn't matter because, it's all from what the, skeptics are, from the analysts are. But I also have a thing that I want to throw out there as far as the number 7 pick. Is there a possibility that we could possibly trade back? I know this is crazy, but trading back and possibly getting somebody through a trade as far as like an actual player trade instead of like somebody that's in the draft that we could trade back, get more acquisitions or more picks. But is there a possibility that somebody's like, they have the 1-year tender on their tag right now, and that they would be willing to be able to trade an actual right tackle to us? I don't know how that works, but I'll hang up and listen. Thank you, man.
Hey, thanks for the call, Brandon. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think if you're talking about trading personnel currently on the roster, I don't know that there's anybody there that could move the needle in any discussions. You got to be talking about draft capital. I saw someone in the F&M Bank chat, who was it, asking if Dylan Radins could get traded. Jael says, can we trade Radins for a pick like the Eagles did when we got Dillard? Guys, nobody's trading for Dylan Radins.
And Dillard didn't get traded. He was a free agent.
That's right. So, yeah, I don't know about that, Brandon. I don't know who on this roster would move the needle in that regard in those type of trade discussions. 615-737-1045. Ryan in Gallatin is next. Hey, Ryan.
So, you said it a minute ago, really. If you get to left tackle at 7, the best one, our left side, just say this out loud, is probably good until about 2034. Because it does not matter who Levis has to throw to. If I'm playing left tackle, we're both going to be on our butts. That's all I got.
Thanks for the call, Ryan. Look, nothing's a sure thing, so you can't sit here and say Joe Alt and Peter Skoronski will be this team's left side of the offensive line for a decade, but you feel
there's the potential there.
Yeah, you feel really good about it with Bill Callahan in charge of that room. Blair in Nashville is next. Hey, Blair.
Hey, Lucas. Good to see you at Billy Strings a couple months ago, my man.
Yes, sir. Fun show, man. What you got?
Hey, I just want to say, I think with Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips, now with Calvin and D-Hop, they have a clean slate. That's why we got Brian Callahan. That's why we got an offensive guru. Give them another year. We don't need receiver. We need edge rusher as our second-round pick.
Thanks for the call, Blair. I could hear edge rusher at 38.
Let's talk edge rusher at 38.
Sure.
That's definitely a need for this team. I'd like to see edge rusher.
Appreciate the call, Blair. Yeah, Blair came up to me at Bridgestone a couple of weeks ago at the Billy Strings show out there and told us he likes the show. So really appreciate you chiming in. All right, free agency superlatives. We talked in terms of specific moves about the most surprising. I think we can reasonably say Calvin Ridley, just in terms of where that was heading and the teams that were involved, New England and Jacksonville, and then the Titans swoop in. Least surprising. Jackson, is there a move that was least surprising to you that you said, okay, that makes sense?
Kirk Cousins to the Falcons.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It just felt, aren't they being investigated for tampering?
They sure are.
So
yeah, Kirk let a little something slip about communicating, I believe, with a Falcons trainer prior to the legal tampering period. So there is something there. I think there's an investigation happening in that regard with Saquon as well in Philly. But yeah, Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, that felt like a move that was brewing prior to it happening. I will say Justin Fields, not in terms of where he landed or the compensation, which I think was probably lower than most expected, goes to Pittsburgh for a 6th-round pick, a conditional 6th that could be a 4th if he plays the majority of the snaps in 2024. But just in terms of the Bears offloading Justin Fields, that felt like a no-brainer to me. I thought that would be the case from day one, that they were in a spot where going into year 4 of his deal, you had no idea what you have. There's flashes there, yes. There's also inconsistencies. And maybe it's unfair to Justin Fields because he was not put in the best situation. But just with the opportunity to inject Caleb Williams, the best prospect in this draft, into a competent roster and hit the reset button on that QB contract, no-brainer, not surprising that the Chicago Bears offloaded Justin Fields. Most underrated move of the free agency period. I'm going to go with Hollywood Brown to the Kansas City Chiefs. I feel like we really glossed over that one. I feel like we haven't talked at all about the way the Super Bowl champs have gone about free agency. They addressed the biggest need that they have with that cost-effective signing of Hollywood Brown. 1 year, $7 million. And this isn't necessarily about Hollywood as a player. Hollywood Brown, we talked about, maybe at the Titans would have been nice, brings the speed element. I know not everyone is in love with Hollywood's game as an all-around receiver, but the fit in that Chiefs offense is intriguing. And think about the wide receiver group that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl with last year. Now, to be fair, Rashee Rice came on strong in his rookie year, was really good at the end of the season, had a nice postseason. But then you're talking about Justin Watson and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Kadarius Toney. Outside of Travis Kelce, obviously, who's the biggest weapon in that offense, it was a huge problem last year. We talked about it all year long. Hollywood Brown is the best wide receiver on the Chiefs roster right now. And the fact that they can continue to address it in the draft with how deep the wide receiver class is, I feel like we kind of glossed over that one. Because I think Hollywood Brown's going to catch a lot of touchdowns thrown by Patrick Mahomes this season.
I like Hollywood Brown. I like that signing a lot. I'm going with the Jags getting Eric Armstead. I think, you were able to franchise tag Josh Allen in Jacksonville, and I just think, it's going to be a problem for the AFC South offensive lines, including the Titans. I definitely saw that one. I was like, oh, that's a really nice pickup for Jacksonville that hasn't been talked about a huge amount.
But can we tangibly say Jacksonville got better? And they're still, we still have the draft, and you can still add players throughout the course of the offseason. But with the most news-heavy portion of free agency behind us, can we sit here and say the Jacksonville Jaguars are a better football team, a better roster right now than they were at the end of the season? Because I don't think we can. Not
offensively. They've gotten worse offensively. Gabe Davis is a downgrade from Calvin Ridley.
Sure.
That's not close.
Yeah, Gabe Davis and Devin Duvernay come in. Calvin Ridley out. They tried to bring him back. So how that affects the Jags draft approach will be interesting. Between Jags and Colts, Jackson, which fan base do you think feels better about the way things have gone over the last few weeks?
Jags, because at least the Jags made some moves. Like, they went and got Gabe Davis. They went and got Eric Armstead. They went and got Devin Duvernay. The Colts have just re-signed their own players, and is that?
Yeah, but don't look at that as a overwhelming. Weren't the Jags trying to re-sign one of their own players in Calvin Ridley? That felt like the biggest swing and miss of the free agency for Jacksonville was they weren't able to re-sign the best player they had on the market.
It just feels like the Colts haven't done enough. They were in on L'Jarius Sneed, didn't get it done. They were in on some other guys, weren't able to. They haven't been able to land any major big time free agents that they've tried to get, and they have a ton of cap space. They have money to work with after signing their own guys, and I just feel like the Colts. If you look at that fan base, they went crazy on Twitter when L'Jarius Sneed was announced to the Titans. That's really where this is coming from, because my feed was filled with Colts fans, just angry, just so angry that they did not get L'Jarius Sneed.
It was a swing and a miss for the Colts not to get L'Jarius Sneed. Titans and Colts were sort of the front runners on that, as was reported. Diana Rossini, I know, was all over that. So, yeah, I'll give you that with the Colts. Re-signing a lot of their own guys, Michael Pittman Jr. Specifically, and not being able to acquire L'Jarius Sneed. They're running it back in a way. And you don't have the Gardner Minshew fallback at quarterback. So you need Anthony Richardson to be healthy this year. And there's still a lot of question marks about Anthony Richardson, not just about his play, but if he can stay healthy in his second season. 615-737-1045 is the number. Phil in Portland is next on The Zone. Hey, Phil.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I wanted to just talk about. Well, let me start off this way, Lucas, if you don't mind. How many times do you eat leftovers before you quit reheating it? It might be good the second time, the third time maybe, but after that you're like, man, I might not want to reheat it. So I'm thinking with Traylon Burks, this got to be the last run with this, whether he's staying healthy or not being productive or can't seem to get open. How many more times do you give him an opportunity before you say, let's just move on? So I just want to hear what you have to say. You have a blessed day. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the call, Phil. Look, there's no point in moving on from Traylon Burks right now. And if you're not going to get anything for Traylon Burks right now, then what are we talking about? Just cutting a guy because you're disappointed he hasn't lived up to that first-round status? Like, there's no point in moving on from Traylon Burks at this moment. And really for the remainder of his rookie contract. He's a wide receiver on a rookie deal that has not shown anything to give you confidence that, yeah, he can take that step and be the wide receiver one that he was intended to be when he's drafted and you traded A.J. Brown. But there's no sense in cutting Traylon Burks. And I know that's not what Phil was saying. He said, if it doesn't happen this year. But I do think Traylon Burks will have his best opportunity this year where the pressure's not going to be on him. Maybe he'll get that opportunity to work in the slot, to operate there where he's had his most success in college. And who knows? Who knows what this system from Brian Callahan will do for Traylon Burks with DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley as the primary targets. But I do understand the frustration, though, from Titans fans because there's nothing from Burks' first 2 years in this league that kind of allows you to hinge anything about this team's future on offense on him, right?
No, he's had one really splash game in Green Bay 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's very much, okay, Traylon, you got at this point, you got to show it to us. Like, we can't pin any expectations on you. We can't have any sort of idea that, all right, you need Traylon Burks to be this until he shows it to us. We went into last year thinking, okay, Traylon Burks, maybe this is his opportunity with DeAndre Hopkins opposite of him. Going into year 2, if he can stay healthy, he had a bright training camp, and it just didn't happen. If anything, it took a dip in production and availability. So this is a big year, certainly, for Traylon Burks in his career, and he's got to show something. So I do understand the frustration, but right now, there's no point in not having Traylon Burks on your roster. His presence is not dragging you down, right?
I think it costs money to cut him at this point.
Yeah, it would be.
It would dip into your cap for this year. Caleb Farley's still on this team.
It's almost a house money thing from Burks, right? Like if you get something from him, great, but not necessarily counting on it. 615-737-1045 is the last call for phone calls. We'll talk about the Preds matchup tonight against Vegas as they look to continue their red-hot streak. We'll do the polls and wrap up the show next on 104.5 The Zone. Speaking of teams that have had uninspiring off seasons to this point, the Dallas Cowboys. How about this tweet from Ian Rappaport just minutes ago? The Cowboys and quarterback Dak Prescott have a mutual understanding of his contract situation, sources say, with no offers from Dallas, despite him being in a contract year. Owner Jerry Jones said, "We are where we are, locked and loaded for this year. No indication a deal is coming." Interesting stuff in Dallas, who's made relatively no moves since the start of free agency. Not a lot of money to work with down there. Cap's real, everyone. Tony Pollard's out the door. They do bring back Rico Dowdle. Just feels like a weird situation going on in Dallas with Dak Prescott as Jerry Jones looks, I guess, to run it back. 615-737-1045. Kyle in Cheville is next to talk about Treylon Burks. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, guys. I'm still big on Treylon Burks. The last coaching staff that we've had here hasn't shown the ability to get the most out of receivers. I know AJ was just he was a superstar waiting to happen. Get out of his way, it was going to happen. So I would be happy if Burks gets in the slot and just takes advantage of smaller slot corners, safeties, linebackers. He can't run the full route tree to be on the outside. He's been misused since he's been here. If we can get 13 games out of him, 700 yards, I'm saying 4 touchdowns, I'd be happy with that. That means that everybody else is getting the ball.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Kyle. If you're getting that out of Treylon Burks, then yeah, you should be ecstatic. Ecstatic. If Burks is getting 700 in 2024 and Ridley and Hopkins are healthy, what are they getting? With the opportunity for Burks to, again, play exclusively out of the slot, which we've never seen him get the opportunity to do. So, again, Burks will have his best opportunity in 2024. What he does with that is to be determined. Just don't bank anything on it. Okay, so tonight, the Nashville Predators are back home hosting the Vegas Golden Knights at Bridgestone Arena. 7 p.m. is the puck drop. Point streak is at 17 games for the Preds. Goes back to mid-February. They're trying to make it 18 tonight. It's already a franchise record. This is the biggest mid-season turnaround in Preds history.
All over a U2 concert.
All over a U2 concert. All going back to the Preds having their U2 concert in Vegas taken away for poor performance. That is the turning point of this season for the Predators. And Jackson, we're talking about them as, I'm almost afraid to say it, Stanley Cup contenders. Like, they're playing like Stanley Cup contenders right now.
And it's not like they've just had a stretch where they've had some games against some bad teams. They've beaten the top teams in the Eastern and West, like went down to Florida, got a win. They've beaten Colorado in this stretch. I mean, just teams that have Stanley Cup aspirations. The Preds have gone on the road and beaten them at home. So, I mean, I think you can say it.
I think it crystallized for me when they put 8 goals up on the Sharks, who are not a good team. I understand. But getting goal contributions from 23 different players in that game that registered a goal or an assist.
That's absurd.
Or, I'm sorry, 13 different players. What am I saying?
Like,
typo. That's crazy. I think it kind of crystallized for me, though, that game, that this is a Cup contending team. Star players playing at an elite level. Roman Josi has 7 goals and 16 assists during this 17-game run. I mean, when do we start talking Norris Trophy with him? Philip Forsberg has a career-high 10-game winners, including Saturday night against Detroit. 39 goals this season. He's 3 away from his career high with
Also
about a month to go.
Got his first fight in like 3 years.
Yes. Back-to-back shutouts in the last 2 games by 2 different goalies for the first time since 2017. Jussi Saros and Kevin Lankinen have a combined .937 save percentage in the last 17 games. That leads the NHL. Just the way the conversation has changed about this team in the last month is insane. 3 of the next 4 games against teams that are currently in the playoff picture, including tonight. Vegas holds the second wild card spot in the West, 3 points back of Nashville. They have won 6 of their last 8, including a win in St. Louis last night. So, the Preds are hot. The Preds look like a team that can make some serious noise in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It has been really fun to watch, and we'll see if they can continue it tonight at Bridgestone Arena. Let's do some polls.
Zoinks, like, hey, Scoob, stop the count, stop the count.
Yeah.
The polls have closed. The votes are in. It's time for a poll update, Scoop. A poll update? Yeah. Zoink, Scoop. Here's Buck Rising Show daily correspondent Lucas Panzica. Lucas Panzica? Yeah.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Jackson Williams, take it away.
How have your expectations for the Titans changed after the first waves of free agency? 56% say definitely a playoff team. 41% say still not a playoff team. 3% Super Bowl, here we come.
56% said the Titans definitely a playoff team. I would say it's trending that way. A lot to be done in terms of depth. You're talking about 1 or 2 injuries setting you back in a big, big way, especially on defense. But absolutely, the Titans are trending that way to where playoffs should almost be the expectation in 2024. That's what the team is signaling.
Do you buy that J.J. McCarthy might be the number 2 pick in the NFL draft? 90% going no, 10% going yes.
I'm very skeptical on the J.J. McCarthy buzz. I guess I'm just always skeptical on this type of conversation taking a drastic turn at this point in the draft process. And typically, I just feel like it doesn't pan out that way. Like, we're trying to do this with Marvin Harrison Jr. Oh, could Malik Neighbors be the first receiver taken? No, it'll be Marvin Harrison Jr. I still am to the point where I'll be surprised if McCarthy's the number 2 pick.
Which AFC South team should feel the worst with what they've done in free agency? 63% going with the Colts, 31% going with the Jags, 5% going with the Titans, and 1% with the Texans.
I'm fine with that order. I'm fine with that. Titans and Texans are in kind of their own category, and the Jags and Colts are in another that have stood pat for the most part. But, yeah, I think the Colts missing out on Snead is big. Jags missing out on their own player in Calvin Ridley is big. So the draft will determine a lot of how those off seasons are viewed.
Do you like the new NFL kickoff rule? 68% going yes, 32% going no.
Absolutely. Love the new kickoff rule. If it limits injuries and it creates more big plays on the kickoff, it's a win-win for everybody. No reason to be upset about this.
Are the Preds Stanley Cup contenders? 70% going yes, 30% going no.
Well, they're playing like it. We'll see if they can continue tonight against Vegas at Bridgestone. And those are the polls. That is the show. Thank you guys for hanging out the last couple days. Buck will be back to ruin all the fun tomorrow at 10 a.m. Jackson Williams, our producer. I'm Lucas Panzica. Blaine and Mickey got you next on 104.5 The Zone.